What's up, guys? Radio Geek here, and today I'm taking a look at a retro-styled 2D platformer that's a spin-off of another Metroidvania-style game. It's a spiritual successor to the old-school NES Castlevania games. Let's take a look at Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. Curse of the Moon came out back in 2018, developed and published by Inti Creates, a company that was formed by some former members of Capcom. It's a spin-off of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which I haven't played, but I intend to eventually. Starting the game, you can select Veteran or Casual style. Veteran means you have limited lives and get knocked back when you're hit. Casual means you have an unlimited number of lives, and there's no knockback. I went with Casual because if you can save your game, you don't need a limited life system, and I hated the knockback in old Castlevania. This makes for a much less punishing and frustrating experience, and games are supposed to be fun. You play however you want. I can't tell you what to do. I'm not your real dad, and I'm not one of those assholes that says you're dead to me if you aren't playing on the highest difficulty possible, but this is how I play. You start the game as Zangetsu, a demon hunter who has something called the Curse of the Moon. I don't think the game ever actually explains what that curse does, but I don't know, maybe I missed something. You progress through 8 stages, and at the end of the first, second, and third stages, after you beat the boss for that stage, you'll come across a potential ally. You can recruit them, which lets you switch between characters at any time, and each character has their own strengths and weaknesses, as well as the different sub-weapons they can use. There's Miriam, the protagonist of Ritual of the Night, who can jump higher, do a sidekick, and has a whip with a pretty good reach. Her sub-weapons are a dagger that's pretty much exactly the same as Castlevania's and isn't particularly useful. There's a big axe, which has no reach but is really powerful. There's a scythe, which acts like Castlevania's cross. And there's a set of throwing knives, which you can throw upwards in an angle. Alfred is a mage, I think, and as such, he has the least amount of hit points among everyone. He has a club or a stick or I'm not really sure what it is, but it kind of sucks and it has no reach. But his sub-weapons are really cool. He has a fire shield which protects him from projectiles and does damage to anything it touches. And you can switch characters with it active, which makes it incredibly useful. An ice attack that freezes enemies solid. A mirror image thing that lets you attack enemies with your stick while still being far enough away from them to avoid their attacks. And a really cool electric attack that homes in on enemies and hits them a few times. There's Jerbel, a vampire, I think. His standard attack is similar to Miriam's throwing knives in that they go upwards at an angle. Other than that, he can turn into a bat and fly. That's all he can do, pretty much. Zangetsu has a sword with a moderate reach, but he has some pretty cool sub-weapons. He's got a spell which functions like Castlevania's Holy Water, and another spell which increases his attack power. This is another one where you can switch characters while it's active, which makes it really useful. Each character also has their own hit point pool, so if one's about to die, you can switch to another one until you're able to find some health. But picking up hearts only affects the character that picks them up, so keep that in mind. If you want, you can also ignore each ally, which means you'll only be able to use Zangetsu throughout the entire game, and you'll get an entirely different ending if you do. You can also kill each potential ally, getting different powers from them, and getting another entirely different ending if you go into that route. Recruiting every ally or killing every ally also unlocks Nightmare Mode or Ultimate Mode respectively, and going through them gives you different endings as well. There are overall 6 different endings to the game, and I'm not going to cover all of them because I want you to play the game and find them all for yourself. There are multiple pathways through each stage, and you'll need certain allies to go through certain pathways. There are these skeletons you'll see every so often that point to a specific direction, which is supposed to be the best way to go. But you can completely ignore each of them and go a different way if you want. Sometimes you'll have to if you don't have the right ally, which can happen even if you recruit them all, because when one dies, you'll start at the last section you were at, and you won't be able to switch to that ally, because they're, dead. But if every character dies, you'll be able to start again with each character you've recruited, just with their most basic sub-weapon and not a lot of weapon points to use them with. Certain allies are also better suited to dealing with certain bosses. And speaking of stages, this part on stage 5 sucks. It's raining heavily, which makes the surface slick, which pretty much equates to every floor acting like a conveyor belt. Makes jumping a pain in the ass. It's no dual tower, but I still kind of hate it. Each boss is pretty fun to fight, but some of them also kind of took me a bit to figure out what I was supposed to do. It's not a bad thing. They were still fun. It's just some are more difficult than other ones. And in Nightmare mode and Ultimate mode, the boss's attack patterns are a bit different, so you have to switch up your tactics, which I thought was a really nice touch. Nightmare mode has you playing as Miriam, Alfred, and Jeeble, with Zangetsu being absent from the party entirely. This can make things a bit more difficult, but also has the upside of being able to access some of the alternate paths in the early stages that you couldn't before. Ultimate mode has you playing as Zangetsu alone, but with 2 new powerful attacks. The game is available on PC, but only through Steam, unfortunately, and every modern console as well. And there were some physical copies being made and sold by Limited Run, but, well, it was exactly that, Limited Run. I tend to avoid limited run games because you're always waiting way too long for the game. I've heard of games from them not being shipped out for at least a year after pre-orders. Anyway, if you want a physical copy now, you'll have to get it secondhand. Anyway, if you were a big fan of the old school NES Castlevania games, or if you just liked the idea of them but thought they were way too difficult, as many do, then you should definitely pick this one up. Casual mode makes it way more accessible than those games, and the veteran mode is there for, well, veterans of the series. I remember playing them as a kid, but going back to them now, I cannot for the life of me remember how I ever managed to get through them. And there's a sequel to Curse of the Moon as well, Curse of the Moon 2, which I will cover eventually. So let me know what you thought about Curse of the Moon in the comments down below. Did you play it? Did you like it? Why? Why not? Thumbs up the video if you liked it, thumbs down if you disliked it, and then click on one of these things. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.